We're back for a second part of the conversation with Information Security Forum Managing Director Steve Durbin. One of the major threats you've identified for 2017 are cybercrime syndicates, taking a quantum leap forward with the level of organization, their skill sets, networks, and tactics that are advancing faster than businesses can keep up. It's no secret that cybercrime is very organized with real business models and real revenues. For example, it's reported that the gang operating crypto wall ransomware has already made over $325 million, and Rove Digital made at least $14 million from DNS changer malware. These examples help us to understand the capabilities of these syndicates and the risks they present to businesses in the coming year. What exactly is a cybercrime syndicate, and how does it operate?
Yeah, cybercrime syndicates, Tavia, really are best viewed as entrepreneurial companies. So they are everything from startup through to mature organizations today. And one of the reasons that I've pulled it out as something for us to really watch much more closely in 2017 is because of this maturing of the organization. So as you mentioned, they do have a good structure in place. They do have business plans. They do know exactly what R&D they're going to be spending on. And they're hugely collaborative. And this is the piece where I think they're probably better than the good guys, because they're not afraid to share. So they understand their strengths and they understand their weaknesses, and they know where they can go to bolster the weakness. And also they know who to sell the strengths to. So what might they look like? Well, some of them that we know just operate from fairly standard, boring, dull office buildings. That's perhaps surprising to some people, but I think given the size of the industry, it probably shouldn't be. Some of them as well have become very adept at providing crime as a service. So for those who have, aspire to have a career in cybercrime, you can get started fairly quickly. You can buy a whole range of different tooling that doesn't require a huge amount of knowledge on your part, that does come with a 24/7 help desk associated with it, that allows you just to get started in some of these areas. So when people, I think, traditionally think about what a cybercrime syndicate might be, they do perhaps think of people, operating perhaps in the underworld type environment. Yes, of course they do. They operate on the darknet, but at the same time, they are very well structured, very well organized, and they do tend to specialize in certain areas as well. So you pretty much know what you're getting into if you do business with a cybercrime syndicate.
That's just an astonishing idea. I like the reference to 24-hour help desk. Good call, customer service. If reports are to be believed, Russians excel at email. The Chinese do IP theft. Eastern Europeans are your best bet for credit card data, etc. They are well established in the world. It's pretty jaw-dropping. Can you give us a profile of a cybercrime syndicate? Are they state-sponsored?
Well, increasingly we're starting to see certainly rogue governments becoming more closely involved with cybercrime. One of the I suppose challenges that we face from a law enforcement standpoint certainly is really trying to track down where some of these syndicates exist, because they make very clever use of the internet. They're also very good at, as I've said, sharing information, moving things around. And so some of the challenges that when we try to bring them to justice, if you like, that law enforcement faces, do come down to things like a lot of the information, a lot of the evidence that is being collected is outside perhaps the jurisdiction in which the court happens to be sitting, and so therefore is inadmissible. Another might be that perhaps they are located in a country that doesn't have an extradition agreement with the country that has had a crime perpetrated on it or within it. So these are some of the real challenges that law enforcement face. But we're starting certainly to see, I think, very much more, I think, two things. Specialization. So you mentioned, that certain parts of the world specialize in certain things. Yes, certainly. So specialization, you know where to go to get the experts. I think the second thing as well about it is that there is so very little that an organisation or indeed an individual can do once you happen to appear on a cybercrime list, if you like, if you're an attractive proposition. And why do I say that? Well, we have to bear in mind that cybercriminals only need to get lucky once, and we need to be defending on a constant basis. That's not just very wearing, but also very, very challenging. And of course, cybercriminals know that. So if you're holding information that can be easily monetized, that could be intellectual property, for instance, or if you're, let's say, a healthcare provider that has a lot of personal information, these are the sorts of things that have a very high value. And so you're likely to be more of a target in that space. So again, it comes down to having to take pretty robust measures to protect the critical information that you're holding within your enterprise against attacks of this particular nature. It does require you to use fairly advanced tools, for instance, to try to understand what's happening across your networks. You know, the average time that cybercriminal or a piece of malware tends to live on your network is between 150 to 220 days, something like that. So if you think about the amount of damage that can be done or the amount of data that can be exfiltrated during that period of time, that's very significant. So again, we come back to the fact that this is a threat that I think most of us are going to have to really come to terms with. It is a threat that will continue to increase in sophistication. And what we can do about it is to put in place, I think, some fairly robust policies and processes and use some fairly up-to-date tooling to make sure that we make life as difficult as possible. At the individual level, that means simple things like making sure that your antivirus is up to date. It's not that complicated, but we tend not to do those sorts of things because we'll get to it at some point.
Of course, always.
So,
yeah, that's my approach about a lot of things. I'll get to it. It's a long list. What approaches should organizations adopt then to keep pace with this ever-increasing sophistication of cybercriminal organizations?
One of the key things is collaboration. It's about sharing information.
So to adopt this bad guy strategy for the good guys.
Exactly. It is just that. And that's at a number of different levels. It is across organizations. So perhaps, across vertical sectors. So banks, for instance, are very good at sharing information with each other. Healthcare providers might want to do the same, retailers and so on, because there are certain elements that are vertical, independent really, and specific. Then there is the much more general sharing of information, and law enforcement certainly would like to see more of that. Because, of course, the more information that we can provide to them, the better equipped they are to conduct some of the forensics that's required come the day when there is a breach or an attack and so on. So I think that this collaboration in a trusted environment is absolutely fundamental, because only by doing that can we understand exactly what stage of development cybercriminals are at. Can we understand the sorts of approaches that they're adopting? And it may be something simple, like they're running a phishing campaign over Thanksgiving. It's as simple as that, But spreading the word through highly collaborative networks where we can continue to learn from each other, I think is fundamental.
So there's a shift in mindset on both sides that no longer can organizations ignore the need for cyber, and no longer can organizations be siloed and protect all information as their business strategy. We're going to need to open up lines of communication across the business world for the good guys, sounds like, to be successful here.
I think that's right. I think that is absolutely spot on. And it isn't about disclosing company confidential information. It's about the processes and then the way you go about protecting data and highlighting some of the challenges that I think we're all facing.
That's really interesting. Stronger together.
Indeed.
Given the sophistication of cybercrime syndicates and the rate at which they are advancing, companies don't exactly have the leisure of waiting on this one. They must really have the right intelligence about these organizations and build cyber resilience into their day-to-day strategy operations in order to stay one step ahead, or they could easily fall prey. For more information on risks posed by advancements in cybercrime syndicates, please visit www.securityforum.org.